The FBI busting a terror plot to attack President Trump's UFC event, using explosives drones to create panic, and then herd people into a kill zone where a sniper's nest would open fire.
Fortunately for us and unfortunately for them, there was a conservative mom. This last week, the president celebrated his birthday with an enormous cage match right behind the White House on the White House lawn. Turns out there were some domestic terrorists that decided they were going to try and interrupt that party with a massacre. Fortunately for us and unfortunately for them, there was a conservative mom that stopped all of it. Who is she? We'll talk about that. We're also going to get into who paid for that big cage match behind the White House. We're going to get into some FISA warrant information because, not knowing who all of these people are, the FISA warrant thing, it expired. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about, what exactly all of that costs the American taxpayer, because there's a lot of fallacies around that information that we are going to dig into. We're going to utilize a short segment on the 5 to do all of this. Join me now. My name is Kelly Jackson, and this is Still Not Canceled.
The FBI busting a terror plot to attack President Trump's UFC event, using explosives drones to create panic, and then herd people into a kill zone where a sniper's nest would open fire. More than 4,000 people were at the White House and around 80,000 at a nearby watch party. 5 suspects are in custody. You're looking at 3 of them.
Of those 3, that bald one there on the far end, it was his mom, his conservative mom from Ohio, that informed the FBI of what exactly it was these people were up to and what she suspected they were going to try to do. Fortunately for us, she thinks the way we do, and it was thwarted, thank goodness.
With more than 10 people total believed to be involved. You're also looking at some of the deadly weaponry that they wanted to use to unleash chaos, including thousands of rounds of ammunition. Agents say the suspects did their homework with aerial maps and photos.
Just so you know, those thousands of rounds of ammunition and that gun you were just looking at, that bald guy, he spent $3,000 of his graduation dollars to purchase the drones, the guns, the ammunition. His substantial savings was used for that.
Photos of locations around the White House. But President Trump's unfazed by yet another alleged attempt on his life.
Mr. President, were you briefed on the attack plans for the UFC event at the White House? There was, the FBI thwarted an attack.
I haven't heard about it, no. But I watched, the attack that I watched were the fighters.
That is so our president. I think he's supposed to sort of be unflappable because he's the leader of the free world. I have a hard time believing he didn't know anything about it.
That last fight was brutal.
Did you watch any of the fight? You weren't there, were you?
I was there.
You were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was there. I watched all the fights.
I mean, they had a lot of security there.
There was a lot of security there. So I found about this like the president for the first time this morning.
I don't believe that either.
And it turns out the plot was not that advanced. They weren't in town. They had not really done that much planning. And so I get why people are so fascinated by it. I do think the political violence and rhetoric in this country is completely out of control.
Completely out of control. We have TikTok and YouTube to a degree, and we have people that are utilizing such extremist language to sort of juice up these young people whose frontal lobes aren't fully formed, who are being told that it's an existential threat and they have to exact violence. Otherwise, their world is going to be upended. And so they do stupid things like this and it ruins their life.
But thank God we've got good law enforcement, good FBI, because it didn't even get close to the point of execution. We have 50 Secret Service agents just in this room. But what I do worry about is a lot of people could have got hurt if these guys pulled this off.
They didn't seem like the sharpest knives in the drawer, but he's right. If they had had the ability to go any further and were just a little bit smarter, they might have pulled something like this off.
The inner circle, not in the security detail protection, but there were 80,000 people. And those are just innocent human beings. They never asked to be involved in politics. And the fact that people were targeting them just shows how despicable.
And the reason that there were 80,000 people is because the president's, I wanted to get into this a little bit, but the UFC cage match, it was essentially sponsored, corporately sponsored by a company called the TKO Group Holdings, and they paid for the fighters, the production, the structural setup for the UFC Freedom 250 event on the White House South lawn. The expense for them was somewhere between 60 and $80 million. And that included the construction of the claw, the massive 92-foot tall, 600-ton lighting cover structure built over the octagon cage on the lawn. The UFC paid the standard fight cards, while special $250,000 athlete bonus pool for the night's winners was funded by World Liberty Financial. That's a cryptocurrency firm owned by the president's family. And then there were lawn repairs that cost about $700,000. So all of that was either paid by the Trump family or it was corporate sponsorship, and it was paid for by corporations because they sold tickets to this thing because the president is a businessman. So maybe it wasn't private like the Obamas or the Bidens. You know, the Obamas, they get, you know, Stevie Wonder over there grooving, or Beyonce. It's a private event, but the law says the only thing the American taxpayer is on the hook for is the security. And that's for any president. It doesn't matter who they are. So for people complaining about how much this cost the American taxpayer, it didn't cost the American taxpayer any more for President Trump than it did for President Biden or President Obama or any other president. So stop complaining.
Yes. And, you know, obviously we have to be right every single time. They only have to be right once. And it wasn't advanced, but there is a strain of the far left that is going down the road of becoming America's Hezbollah.
Yes.
And it's not good. It's not good for any of us. It's not good for our safety. It's not good for these young people. Look at these guys. Their lives ruined because they wanted to participate in a plot to take down the president. They did have plans. I mean, I hope that they throw the book at them and that they get in trouble for a long time. They wanted to go after capitalist pigs. They're probably triggered by.
That's part of it too. Even my own kids have had things said to them in their high schools here in Tennessee, sort of framing capitalism as evil, when in reality, capitalism is the most compassionate economic system on the planet because it enables anybody to do anything that they want to do so long as they're willing to put in the work.
The one thing I would maybe just ask is, obviously this wasn't advanced, but with FISA not passed and it's opaque. And so you cannot collect that kind of data, so that we had the open border for 4 years.
Okay, so she's going to sit here and try to make a case for FISA, which I get. We have a foreign intelligence surveillance court where you have to go and get a warrant, and it's a much more expedient process than our American courts against Americans, which is why they were abusing it against Americans and using the FISA warrants, qualifying the surveillance of Americans through some kind of foreign national, bringing in some foreign element so that they could spy on Americans. We all know that that's what was happening. So that's why it expired and it didn't get voted back in, because it was so horribly, horribly abused. And they know this.
So you don't know who all is in the country. Well, hopefully we do, but it's hard to track them all. And then if any of the characters from outside of the country are trying to call one of those guys to get them to do something, we need that program.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody had been engaged in foreign terrorist activities, communicating with these guys,
Right.
we would actually be kind of blind to it right now because FISA has lapsed and FISA has expired. I'm a big believer that if you're going to, of course, wiretap an American citizen, you got to have a warrant. But if you have some
Okay, but the problem is they weren't getting them. They were just using the FISA court.
crazy person outside the country planning a terrorist attack, we've got to be able to get access to that information right away. It's one of the reasons why, we care so much about this particular program. But here's the crazy thing. Even though you're right, like, it's not like they were in Washington, D.C. with guns, ready to start lighting people up. They had the violent intent and they were planning on doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Hear us.
Unfortunately for them.
Another reason, Jessica, you need the big, beautiful ballroom. It's a drone port. So you can then launch drones.
I hear Jessica's actually a big fan of the ballroom.
I heard too.
Was I
to
improperly briefed, Jessica?
You were, and it's the taxpayer-funded ballroom.
I'm going to say this for everybody who has issues with the ballroom. Whenever they have a party out on the lawn, they have to rent a really expensive tent. Those tents are really expensive for regular people in regular places like Tennessee. Imagine what they are for parties that they give at the White House in DC. So we've had to pay that cost every single time over and over and over again. At least with the ballroom put into place, nobody's going to have to do that again. So stop bitching about it, because I'm tired of hearing it. This is something that they've needed probably for a really long time. And other presidents have put in things like bowling alleys. So let's not complain.
I mentioned that about a half of it. Listen, this has been a problem for a long time and just growing exponentially. So Obama got 3 times the number of threats and 11 credible assassination plots. Then it went up under Trump. I think Biden, had some, but not as much, and then Trump again. So obviously we have a real problem with this. And I think also the amount of conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories that are flying around on the left and the right when things like this do happen, like Butler, for instance, or even what we saw at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where people thought that that was staged, is such an unhealthy place for us to be as a country. I think part of that is, more transparency and making sure that people know what's actually going on. And then also people in positions of power doing the right thing and coming out. Like, I appreciate that you said this actually wasn't that far along, right? Like, we were safe and the event was safe, because I think that people do want to, mix it up, stir it up. They want that algorithm to be juiced in, whatever partisan direction you're in, and for it to turn into President Trump almost died, or, Obama almost died, et cetera.
She probably should go back and have a conversation with her friends, Rachel Maddow and all of the gang over there at MSNBC, because they're the ones that are responsible for a lot of these crazy people. You don't see conservatives doing this kind of stuff. You just don't. Show me the last truly conservative person that went out and did something like this. They just don't exist. It hasn't happened. It's always been a very far left progressive, because you've got people like Rachel Maddow calling President Trump basically Hitler. I mean, and that's the one that they bring out every single time. So yes, the rhetoric has gotten to be too much. They've spent the last 6 or 7 years, while these young people have been growing up, utilizing that hyperbole. And this is the result of it. This is what happens. They really believe it because, again, not fully formed frontal lobes. So maybe if we were to ratchet that back and utilize language that is actually more true and not just fear porn, then maybe we wouldn't have situations like this. Maybe we wouldn't have mothers that are having to turn in their sons because they're going to try and go kill the president during his birthday party. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Give me your thoughts. Give me your comments on any of the things that I discussed in that video, the FISA warrants, the lapse of that, whether or not that makes us less or more safe, privacy for security, any of those things that I just talked about. Please put it in the comments. If you haven't joined the community, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be starting to do some lives here very soon. I'm interested in engaging with anybody in the community and having conversations, because that's what we need to do. This is still not canceled. I question the narrative every single time, because the truth is somewhere in the middle. My name is Kelly Jackson, and I will see you again later. Thanks. Bye-bye.